Adobe Premiere 2019 playing 7680 times 4320, or also known as 8K, at 60 frames per second on this 32-core Threadripper machine with a Quadro RTX 5000 graphics card. The CPU load, if you cast your eye to the left, is currently 24%. The GPU load is, we can have a closer look here if you want, not very high, but then the key is actually we're using CUDA for decoding, are we? No, we are not. This is actually purely CPU based. We use the CUDA pipeline that's inside Adobe Premiere, but actually all the decoding happens here on the CPU side. This is using the CPU decoder. And that's it. The clip's over. We played entire minute worth of material. How many frames were dropped? 0. Believe it or not. So how does scrubbing look like in full 8K inside Adobe Premiere? Absolutely fantastic. This is using a standard SSD, PCIe SSD, which you can buy over the counter at Best Buy or anywhere else. So there's nothing special here. The entire machine, probably with the biggest cost factor here is the Quadro RTX 5000. But for those that want to go the consumer way, a RTX 2070 would deliver pretty much the same performance. But of course, the professionals would probably stay with the Quadro line. Regardless, behold, you can do 8K editing on a standard machine, and 32 cores these days is not really that much of a reach, especially using the AMD processors here. This has been something that's now per CPU below $2,000. The rest of the machine build, but let's say under $5,000, you have a machine that easily does 8K editing. As I said, 25% load when we play, so that means I can play roughly 4 8K streams at the same time. This is still giving the ability to use CUDA-based effects on top of it. Wow, 10 frames have now dropped, but it's holding steady. So what does this mean? If this is not the end of the line. You could have used multiple Quadro cards. You could use multiple RTX cards. You can scale, certainly when you do heavy loads of effects. You can do multi-track 8K. And I have to take a little of a snipe here at Apple. Their wonderful reveal at the developers conference did show 3 tracks of 8K. That's mighty nice, but they were only doing 30 frames per second. This is 60 frames per second, as clearly indicated up here. So we can do more than they can on a much cheaper machine. So in other words, if you see the load here, you can do this even with a lesser machine and still have loads of headroom. What does this mean for 4K? Of course, you're laughing. You're absolutely laughing. The secret here, of course, the big secret here is the Synergy Daniel2 codec that is being used to make all of this possible. Thanks for listening.